It's time to take a stand and stop the sexualization of our children. Action for Canada has created a notice of liability to assist you. The title of this NOL is Facilitating an Exposure of Minors to Sexually Explicit Educational Resources, Activities, and/or Events. The United Nations has mandated that all member nations implement the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Resource. CSE is a learning platform that was developed within the context of a program developed by UNESCO. This so-called resource sexualizes children at the earliest ages possible, and it's no surprise that it's causing great harm to our children, as well as attacking the traditional family unit. According to Section 163.1 and Section 152 of the Criminal Code, as well as the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, it's a criminal offence to sexualize and exploit children. Here at Action for Canada, we've been working to expose this evil agenda and to empower parents, grandparents, and concerned citizens to take a courageous stand. In an effort to assist you, we've created a page on our website where you will find an incredible assortment of information on this issue, including the various programs that have been introduced into our schools. Beyond the Basics is the resource used in Nova Scotia, WIN Sex Ed is used in Ontario, CSE is used in Manitoba, and SOGI 123 is used by the rest of the provinces. By introducing these programs into our educational system, our children and youth are being exposed to sexually explicit pornographic materials in the form of books, magazines, and comic strips. Our kids are also encouraged to become members of organizations that promote sexually deviant behavior and the exploitation of minors. Be sure to take advantage of this notice of liability, which will advise teachers, librarians, trustees, ministers, etc., that they will be held personally liable for exposing minors to any form of pornography or sexually explicit material, as well as any activities or organizations promoting sexual deviancy and the exploitation of minors. By using this valuable NOL, you have the ability to demand that the CSE learning resources be immediately and completely removed from libraries and the education system. That all of the books listed, including titles by the same authors, be immediately removed, and that all educational facilities, including libraries, cease and desist promotion of any and all activities, including performers and clubs that exploit our innocent, impressionable, and vulnerable children and youth. Knowing is not enough. You must take action. Here are some powerful actions you can take to protect our youth, no matter your age or station in life. Pull your children out of public schools and universities. Run, facilitate, join, or help with a homeschool group. Get involved in writing letters and serving notices of liability. Run for office as a school board trustee, mayor, or city councillor. Connect with an Action for Canada chapter near you. We cannot ignore this message. Our children and youth are being subjected to twisted ideologies using social justice as a means to indoctrinate and groom them, and we must protect them. Thank you for taking a stand to protect kids. If you like what we're doing at Action for Canada, please consider making a donation to support our ongoing work. And be sure to join a chapter near you. God bless you, and God bless Canada. Hello and a warm welcome as you join us for tonight's show. If this is your first time here, you've come to the right place, where we are committed to providing information and resources for everyday Canadians. Our guest speaker this evening is Rhonda Miller, and the title of tonight's show is Unmasking the Agenda, Follow the Money. It's November 5th, 2025, and this is the Empower Hour. Action for Canada is a national movement reaching out to millions of Canadians and uniting our voices in opposition to the destructive policies tearing at the fabric of our nation. Through call to action campaigns, we educate, equip, mobilize, and empower citizens to take action. We are committed to protecting faith, family, and freedom. We'd like to invite you to check out the Parent Resources page on our website. Our innocent and vulnerable children and youth are being indoctrinated by radical ideologies in schools, television, and social media. Here at Action for Canada, we are working tirelessly to help you by providing webinars, presentations, resources, and information. Be sure to head over to our website today. It's always a pleasure to introduce you to Tanya Gaw, the founder and leader of Action for Canada. For over 10 years now, Tanya has been focusing on faith, family, and freedom, and she and the Action for Canada team are always hard at work, bringing awareness to the many critical issues facing our nation, including tonight's topic of protecting our children from radical sexual indoctrination and inappropriate ideologies. Will you all please help me welcome Tanya Gaw. Hello, Tanya.
Hi, Heather. So good to have you back.
Thank you.
You were missed, and you're right. This is going to be a very important show tonight. I can't wait to have Rhonda come on. She's got a lengthy presentation, and I'm going to ask our viewers in advance to please, once we've launched this presentation, I'm going to ask you to take the time to share it with your elected officials. It is a matter and a time that we're living through right now where most of our elected officials have been lobbied by less than 1% of the population to advance a very radical agenda. They are also being funded by the globalists, which is what we're going to learn more about tonight. And I think we need to press back and just say, for those elected officials who are part of the problem, to say, look, we know what's going on. Here's the evidence of it. And, we want to hear back from you. We need a commitment from these people to ask, why are they putting globalist agendas before their own sovereignty and their own nation and their own people? All right, these are elected officials. All right, they're not kings and they're not queens in this country. They are here to serve Canadians, and I believe they need a reminder. So I've got a couple of links that I want to share with you before we get into the show. We've had an incredible win. I know the budget and all of the information is coming out right now about Carney and what they've tabled and the outrageous deficit that is going to be on the backs of the future generations. And of course, you probably heard about that traitor from the Conservative Party that crossed the aisle and joined the Liberals. And we're hearing more and more today it was to save his own job. Never mind that it could put Carney in the Parliament for another 4 years until 2029 instead of an election being called in December. So there's a lot going on in the background. You need to be informed, and we're here to help with that. Okay, so here's the big win. And you could say, is this really big win? Absolutely. We are fighting for the foundation of our nation, which is built on biblical Christian principles. And a committee last year had decided to interfere and to put forward recommendations that were in the financial report in the budget coming up. I've got it right here, recommendations 429 and 430, and it was to remove charitable status from churches. And they would have come in and they would have taken the property of churches had this gone through. And of course, it's just one more hit against our Christian foundation. And we're here to protect that. So we did multiple calls to action. And we are very happy to say that the Liberals did not include it in their budget. I did research today to see if they were, maybe they had it under a different section or by another name, or that they were moving towards it. And from what I I could source, there was zero evidence of them continuing to come after charitable status of the churches. So, you know what? Give yourselves a pat on the back. And this is what here at Action for Canada is all about, action. And so we mobilized you. We provided a letter on the page. Let me just go to the original call to action if I had that out right here. So this will be coming out if you've joined Action for Canada and you receive our emails, you're going to get this in your inbox tomorrow morning because we're going to send it out tonight to let you know that we've had this win. And when we did the original, of course, we provided you an email, and there's several calls to actions that are very important. Another one I'm going to be highlighting is regarding the unions. And I think that the reason I really want to emphasize how important it is that when we send out a call to action that you take the 5 minutes, that you copy, paste it, write your own letter, and then send it to the elected officials that we're providing on that list. So that's a win. And the next one I want to again promote is the parental rights resource that I created a couple of weeks ago. I'm making that available to parents nationwide. It is very, very important. It's like when we were going through COVID and people were complying because they didn't realize that the government couldn't actually lock us down and keep us in our homes, make us stand 6 feet apart and wear masks. It's like completely illegal. They had no power or authority to do it, but the Bible says, for lack of knowledge, people perish. And that's what we were experiencing. And the same thing is going on with our parents. For lack of knowledge, parents are handing their children over in the school systems to these radical sexual deviant activists and almost saying, have your way with my child, because apparently I can't do anything about it. And that's just a lie from the pit of hell. So look up this resource on our website. You'll find it on the parent resource page under resources. And the opening line says, in Canada, it's actually around the world. But in Canada here, where it's most relevant to you, parental rights predate the state and arises from natural and divine law. The right of parents to educate, guide, protect their children is enshrined in our Constitution, Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the law, and most specifically, the biblical foundations of our nation. So look that up, share it with other parents, and get yourself educated. Now, the other call to action that we sent out last week, in alignment and in readiness for Rhonda to come on the show tonight, because she's going to be talking about the 13 bloodlines, the flow of money that is taking down our Western nations, and where some of that money is flowing, a lot of it actually is into the unions. They're not just collecting union dues and spending millions of dollars on elections to get radical activists into the school boards. They are being funded by the globalists, and they've got a Marxist agenda, and it needs to be called out and it needs to be taken down. So in this particular action, we focused on Daniel Smith in Alberta, because the Alberta Teachers Association, actually there's 4 unions. I only mentioned the Alberta Teachers Association, who put $1.1 million towards the trustees election in 2021, and it's reported 1.5 million this year, but in total it was $4.4 million that the unions combined, QP unions, etc., were investing into the election to get radical activists elected. It's like, how can we compete with that? Down in the United States, they are taking absolutely incredible steps to address the unions and the radicalization of them and rein them back in. So they've introduced a right to work bill. The National Right to Work Act ensures all American workers have the ability to choose to refrain from joining or paying dues to a union as a condition for employment. That's really important. You should have a say where your union dues go. Do you want them to go towards getting radical sexual deviants elected into school board as school board trustees? I don't think so. And then the other act is the bill to end backroom federal labor union deals, called the Federal Workforce Freedom Act. This legislation would end federal labor unions and immediately terminate their collective bargaining agreements to ensure the federal government is working on behalf of the American people, not labor unions, by increasing the productivity of its workforce. And again, I think it's just phenomenal. And this is what happens when people rise up in a country and really get busy during election to get their preferred candidate elected. And not enough of that is going on in Canada. Too many people are capitulating and just leaving it to someone else to do. So another call to action is, you know what, we could have an election in December. Are you going to get on the front lines? Are you going to get out there door knocking and helping someone get elected? I sure hope so. I'm just going to bring to awareness again, I've reported on this before, Chat GPT, which is being used by students to create their reports, which is really devastating their ability to research and learn. But now they're adding erotica for verified adults as of December. All right. So if your kids are on any AI system, I would ban it. Like, don't allow it in your home. Shut your computers off, cut your cable, do whatever you got to do. Try to homeschool whatever you can. This is a 911 call to protect our children, and it's coming at our kids from all angles. And so finally, I just want to mention under current issues, you can find the LGBTQ page to see all of the good work and resources that Action for Canada is doing to equip Canadians to take back their school boards, protect their children, and overturn all of this. And we are winning these battles, but we need more hands on deck. So with that introduction and those highlights, I want to now turn the show over to Rhonda Miller. So my friend Heather, would you please introduce our guest? I'll stop sharing. There you go.
We are so pleased to have Rhonda Miller join us on tonight's Empower Hour. Rhonda is a wife, mother, independent researcher, and the CEO of Purple for Parents United. She spent the last 13 years uncovering the truth of what's been happening in American education, and she's dedicated to informing, advocating, and engaging people to protect children from harmful agendas and progressive ideology. Rhonda has gone to the Indiana and Texas capitals to testify before both the House and Senate committees, and she's worked with legislators to overturn Indiana's loophole that allowed schools to legally distribute pornography, as well as the defunding of the Kinsey Institute. Will you all please help me welcome Rhonda Miller. Hello, Rhonda. Welcome to the Empower Hour.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Heather, and welcome, Rhonda. I've been so looking forward to your presentation tonight, and I want to add you're a rock star. I'm going to add rock star to that incredible list because, you know, I just had the privilege of meeting you and Audrey finally in person in Washington, D.C. at the beginning of October, and the work that you ladies are doing down there, the work that your organization has done in getting the Kinsey Institute defunded was absolutely massive. I really think that people, the more and more we talk about Alfred Kinsey and what he did to start the sexual revolution in sex ed, once people really understand the depths of abuse that he administered to children 5 months old to 14 years old and how that took off and is now affecting countries around the world, and you got him defunded at the local university level, and you are going to knock it out of the park. We've mentioned it multiple times by retabling Bill HR 2749 to have this individual investigated for his criminal actions and assaults against children. So I am just so blessed to have you on the show, and welcome to you.
Thank you, Tanya, for so much for having me. And yes, getting the Kinsey Institute defunded of U.S. or Indiana taxpayer dollars was no easy task for sure. And we took lots of bullets for that, but it's worth doing, and it's worth going after that institute and having it investigated finally for the crimes and fraud that was committed.
Right. And what is the ultimate goal by having him investigated?
We want to uncover the basis for all of this sexual perversion that has been pushed into our schools, into our public libraries, and across the globe, because he was given consultative status to the United Nations in 2014, which is what is essentially has allowed the UN to force other countries, if they want US aid, to start perverting their children, was built on the lies and the fraud of Kinsey and the crimes that he committed against children. So ultimately, when we call for that investigation and get it done, then that should start unraveling everything that came forth from that.
Right. And I'm so excited about that, to have sex education eradicated from the school system. I mean, it's almost a mind-blowing idea, because we have all been indoctrinated into believing we needed to teach our kids sex ed. But what we want to turn around to and go back to is the biblical standards for sexuality, for purity, and waiting for marriage, and all of these good things that actually blessed our children. There will always be promiscuity, but it will never be to the scale it is now, had we been following God's design. And so I'm very excited about the path that I'm joining you on in a lesser capacity, but I'm here in full support, because this started in the United States by the government allowing not only Kinsey's flawed and horrible research to move forward, but it changed so many laws in the United States that protected marriage between a man and a woman. It was against abortion, protecting our children. I mean, people don't understand how far-reaching this approval of Kinsey's research, what an impact it has had, not only on America, but now the whole world. And that could be overturned. And I believe this is in according to God's will. And so therefore he will give us that way. So again, thank you for that work, and comment on that if you like, but then I want to just turn it over to you to do this presentation that you've spent a lot of time preparing, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much, Tanya. And I appreciate your support, along with all the other colleagues that we met in DC just a few short weeks ago, all of your guys' support in our efforts to get that done. And, I often tell people, Indiana owns this because it set up camp there. And that's my former state. I was born and raised in Indiana, recently moved to Texas, but Indiana owns that. That institute is on their grounds. And as well as the United States government, 30 years ago, had they investigated the institute and gone after Kinsey for his crimes and fraud, then we would have prevented the global children from being targeted.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's time to overturn it. All right. Thank you, my friend. Over to you now for the presentation.
Okay.
Thanks.
So thank you so much for allowing me to share this information with you guys tonight. We're going to delve into education. We're going to talk a little bit about the Kinsey perversion and what's been happening in the schools. But I hope to give you a much broader perspective on what's really been happening with this dark money behind the scenes. So for those of you who don't know, additionally, my husband and I just celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary, and we have 3 children, one of whom, our oldest daughter, was captured by the educational system before I even realized what was really going on. So we've paid the price for being some of those parents who've sat back and just not been active and not really knowing what was going on with the educational system. So as we go through here, let me just see if I can move down. There we go. So we're going to talk about tonight unmasking the agenda, following the money. That is my passion, is to uncover who's behind the scenes, who's working on this. So who's really funding the agenda to destroy our civilization, and how are they maneuvering behind the scenes? And that is one of the things I hope that you take away tonight, understanding how this money flows back and forth and who's all involved. But I would like to start with some scripture first. Isaiah 5:13 says, "Therefore my people have gone into captivity because they have no knowledge." And that is the point where we are at. They have deliberately dumbed down our entire society so that we cannot critically think. We don't know who's really who, and who's really working behind the scenes to destroy everything that God gave us. Proverbs 24, 5 and 6 says, "A wise man is full of strength, and a man of knowledge enhances his might. For by wise guidance you can wage your war, and in abundance of counselors there is victory." We are at war. We didn't declare it; they declared it on us. And then Ephesians 6:12, "For our wrestling is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places." First and foremost, this is a spiritual battle that we're fighting. So let's take a look at the New World Order power structure. And this is where I like to start with. Now you can go above and beyond this even, but for what I do, I start here. The umbrella that you see there lists the 13 bloodline families. Now there are others you can add to this list, but these are the ones that Fritz Springmeier wrote in his books that highlights those. And we're going to talk about tonight two of those families, DuPont and Rockefeller, throughout this presentation. They essentially are the ones who have started those outlying entities, the Committee of 300, the League of Nations, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Tavistock Institute, the WHO, World Health Organization, the Club of Rome, the World Economic Forum, and the Trilateral Commission. And what they're doing is they're collaborating all of their efforts through the United Nations, their Agenda 21 and the Agenda 2030 programs. And I'm sure most of you are aware of this, but we're going to dive deeper in that tonight so that you understand, hopefully, better how they're working. So I tell people as we meet the Rockefellers, I encourage everyone to get a copy of Gary Allen's The Rockefeller File. It's a great resource to have on hand. But this is David Rockefeller in his own words. He said, "Some even believe we are a part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States and the globe, actually, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure." There is an economic war that's going on that many of us do not see, that's working behind the scenes. And I go into that in more detail in my full presentation. A one world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I am proud of it. He's admitting that that is what they're doing. So what you need to know is he is an honorary chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations. He was a founder and honorary chairman of the Trilateral Commission. He was also a U.S. founding member of the Bilderberg Group, which is another Illuminati group. He was also a Class A director of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, which is anything but federal. It's a private bank that they have been manipulating all of our money through. So in 1952 to 1954, there was a Reese committee that was set up to investigate the foundations and their power and influence, which is the title of the book that Renee Wormser wrote. He served as a counsel to the Reese committee, and what he determined that we in America have three branches of government. This entity is so powerful. This network is so powerful. He dubbed them the fourth branch. They essentially are built around an interlocking network of social re-engineering. That's the whole point, is socially re-engineering our society, your society, the globe's society. And the three main culprits of this, the Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundation, and the Carnegie Foundation. There are many others, but those are the three of the major ones. This is Norman Dodd. He served as the chief counsel to the Reese Committee. And you can go on YouTube and you can look up many of his videos where he talks about what he experienced as he was trying to investigate what was really going on with these foundations. And in the book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, Charlotte Iserbyt has this quote in there that Norman Dodd had said. He was told, "If you proceed with the investigation as you have outlined, you will be killed." They weren't messing around. This is how powerful these people are and these organizations are. So let's take a look at one of them. This one is Arabella Advisors. I had stumbled across them several years ago as I was doing research on my favorite website, influencewatch.org, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later on. But Arabella Advisors just expanded, as I found out a few days ago. But essentially, they were set up in 2005 by a guy named Eric Kessler. In 2006, they then set up their legacy fund, the New Venture Fund, which more or less was set up to infiltrate the church with an environmental message. And they provided a toolkit for pastors on how to push the environmental gospel into the church. You have the North Fund, who has a board member that is a union organizer of the National Education Association. And then one of the newer entities is the Impetus Fund, which is set up to influence elections. The 1630 Fund, the Telescope Fund, which was just set up just a few years ago for grant making. So that's the whole point of that organization itself. And then the Hopewell Fund was set up by Warren Buffett, more or less, to promote abortion. And then the Windward Fund, which was basically established by the Rockefellers, Kellogg's, and the Waltons. They share a board member named Harry Drucker, who's a trustee of the Nature Conservancy. And we'll talk more about the Nature Conservancy later on, because they're very much active in Canada as well. But at the bottom left, you can see the big donors of Arabella are your usual suspects. Gates, Ford, Rockefellers, Warren Buffett, William and Flora Hewlett and David and Lucille Packard. That is the Hewlett Packard Company. W.K. Kellogg's, your cereal company. Robert Wood Johnson. The Weiss Foundation, which we'll come back to at the very end. They serve a very specific purpose in all of this. And then the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. What I would recommend that you do is get the book Arabella, written by Scott Walter. I had the honor of meeting him last year before we moved to Texas. He's a great resource. That is a great book to have on hand. This diagram, minus the impetus and the telescope, which I just recently added, this diagram came out of his book, essentially, and that's how I put that together. But he is the chief financial officer or CEO, I think it is, of the Capital Research Center in Washington, D.C. They own the InfluenceWatch.org website, where they are exposing 30 years of research in uncovering all of this dark money. It is a great resource to go to uncover all of this network. So a year after Arabella was established, they then went global. They come out with their Center for Global Development Evaluation of Impact, their Arabella and Analytical report. So it didn't waste any time. As soon as they launched in 2005, 2006, they went global. So what does that look like? Well, here's what that interlocking network of money flow looks like. And this was, I just put this together a few days ago, and there's a lot of arrows back and forth, back and forth. And this is where it gets a little difficult, a little challenging for some of these people who are chasing all of this money, because they keep it flowing, they keep it moving. So you have Eco Justice Canada Society. I went into Influence Watch and I just put in Canada, and up popped multiple entities, but Eco Justice Canada, I started with that one. And look what I uncovered. You have an organization called the Goethe Foundation, which was a new one for me, but it's based out of Ohio. They fund the Clinton Foundation. You also have the William Flora Hewlett Foundation, is also part of or funding Eco Justice Canada Society. And you can see where the money flows from there. I mean, the Hewlett Foundation's funding Planned Parenthood. You've got them funding the United Nations Paris Agreement. You've got them funding the Tides Foundation. You've got the Tides Foundation then funding American Library Association and the Trevor Project, which is your ideological gender ideology, and the American Library Association is controlled by these globalists too. They're pushing all of these perverted books into the schools and into the public libraries, right? The Open Society is also funding the Tides Foundation, Rockefellers as well. But then what's interesting is the Tides Foundation is one of the entities that funded the No Kings riots. A lot of them are tied right there. You can see to Arabella itself, the Weiss Foundation, and you've got the American Federation of Teachers over on the right. Okay. The Weiss Foundation also funds the Nature Conservancy. We'll talk more about them, as I said, later. The Center for Public Democracy is involved, National Education Association. And I've dropped in some of the dollar amounts, but please don't focus on the dollar amounts necessarily, because those dollar amounts fluctuate from year to year. But I would just encourage you to go to influencewatch.org, the Capital Research Center's website, as well as the Data Republican. If you have not heard of the Data Republican, please go look at that website, and you can start unpacking all of this money flow as well. They do a great job there of also tying us all in. But also, I included on here, the Tides Foundation also funds the Council on American Islamic Relations, the CARE. Okay, that is important to know. So let's take a look at No Kings. Okay, so here's the list that Representative Luna had put up on her social media. You can see here, she broke it down. These big entities: Arabella, Buffett, Ford, Rockefeller, Soros, and Tides, as I just showed you in that diagram. But this is what I want you to catch. Okay, for those of you who don't know, many people are wondering, okay, what's going on with all these riots, these rallies, these marches, this this nonsense, this Marxist revolution, right, is what we're experiencing. Well, I want you to go back to 1977 to the Select Committee on Intelligence. There was a document that I recently started reading down through, Project MKUltra, the CIA's program of research and behavioral modification. This is all about changing the behavior of society to this Marxist revolution, this color revolution that they're bringing forward. And here's what I want to point out. So what happened was the MKUltra experiments from the 60s and 70s, and even before that, probably, They supposedly ended in the 70s. It didn't end. Okay, I'm telling you, it didn't end. It went underground, but they destroyed a lot of the records. However, they didn't destroy everything. And there was an individual who was out trying to fulfill a Freedom of Information request. And he found some of those documents hiding outside of Washington, D.C. And he gathered them all, read through them all, and then they broke them down into 15 different categories of what these projects were under MK Ultra. And then this committee was formed, a select committee. And then there was this conversation going back and forth between the committee members and the intelligence community as they're testifying before them. And they were asking them certain questions. But in category number 13, this is what caught my attention. Category 13 broke apart some of these sub-projects of this material into harassment techniques for offensive use. So think about that a minute. Harassment techniques for offensive use. So is that why we see no kings? Is that why we see BLM? Is that why we see all these marches, these rallies, these riots, right? Because it's all about changing behavior through behavior modification. So let's talk about the Tavistock Institute. That was on the diagram I showed you earlier with the umbrella. On page 94, it says in this book, when the technique has been perfected, every government that has been in charge of education for a generation will be able to control its subjects securely without the need of armies or policemen. That gives you an idea of the mindset of what they were trying to do with education for a very, very long time. This book here is one I read early on, Training for Treason, the harmful agenda behind education for sustainability. On page number 97, it says, we need to change the mindset of the teachers and students. If we can educate them to act different in a different way, then they will go out and advocate different government policies. So is that what they're doing with these techniques for influence? And then on page 97, also it says, but the most important reason we chose to work at the college and university level is because that is where the future teachers are trained. They're telling you that's what they were doing, was they intended to go to the university and go after the future teachers so that they could change and socially re-engineer society. I want you to listen to this video from Bill Gates from 2009, and I want you to pay close attention to when he smirks.
In terms of standards, the state-led Common Core State Standards Initiative is developing clear, rigorous standards that will match the best in the world. Last month, 46 governors and chief state school officers made a public commitment to embrace those standards. This is encouraging, but identifying common standards is just the starting point. We'll only know if this effort has succeeded when the curriculum and tests are aligned to these standards. Secretary Arne Duncan recently announced that $350 million of the stimulus package will be used to create just these kinds of tests, next generation assessments aligned to the Common Core. When the tests are aligned to the common standards, the curriculum will line up as well, and it will unleash a powerful market of people providing services for better teaching. For the first time, there'll be a large uniform base of customers looking at using products that can help every kid learn and every teacher get better. Imagine having the people who create great online video games applying their intelligence to online tools that pull kids in and make algebra and other subjects fun.
Did you catch when he smirked? When he smirked, he talked about it being governor-led. It was never governor-led, and he knew it. He knew he was lying when he made that statement. The reason is because he was behind the push for Common Core. He had an agreement with the United Nations to push and advocate for Common Core. The other reason is this right here. This is Condoleezza Rice, a Republican. She's also a member of the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations. She helped draft this report from 2012, the Independent Task Force report, where it said states should expand Common Core state standards. Now, this was shortly after the launch in America of Common Core state standards from around 2009, 2010. And then it took until, I think, 2014, 2015 before it was fully implemented here. But in 2012, they were already talking about the expansion of Common Core state standards. Here you can see Once they had Common Core implemented, here comes social emotional learning. Social emotional learning is a global agenda. As you can see here, UNESCO. Social and emotional learning must be a priority for transformed early education. And when they're talking about early education, they're talking about preschoolers. The sooner they get the kids away from mom and dad, the better off they are, and the more easily they are to be brainwashed and controlled. And you can see in the bottom left, social emotional learning from UNESCO is being pushed through development and training through the teachers and counselors and the individuals in the schools. And then you can see the World Health Organization is also involved in this through technology, fostering social emotional learning through technology. So who's really behind these social emotional learning programs? Well, it's CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning. So I took a look in 2023, who was really funding CASEL? Well, you can see right there, the Gates, Rockefellers, Tide Foundation, the Novo Foundation, Robert Wood Johnson, some of the ones we already talked about earlier, New Venture Fund, Arabella, George Soros. You can see these entities are behind the funding of CASEL. What was interesting in Indiana in particular, where I came from, is we are home to, or they're home to, Lilly Pharmaceutical. And Lilly used its money to bribe the schools in 2017 and 2018 when they rolled out the money through a counseling initiative. They transformed education in the state of Indiana through social emotional learning with the whole mental health push. It goes hand in hand, because when you get the kids confused about who they are, you push this LGBTQ agenda that is against the parents' wishes. You open up the transgender ideology, which is what they did through the American School Counselors Association position statement, which is what the schools were being trained on through this grant money. That's where all of this LGBT agenda came into the schools. This in 2023 was also one of the entities I uncovered, and this is how they fund and they back these legislators. This particular organization, Stand for Children, they put the House Education Chairman into office years ago. He's been there for over 30 years. But when I uncovered who was funding Stand for Children, I soon realized that he was actually put into office by the deep state and the globalists. And this is who was backing that effort. So then once they dumbed the kids down and they've got them all confused, we started realizing that the literacy rates were so bad. They're in single digits in some of the counties in Indiana. And parents are realizing their kids can't read. They can't read, they can't function. If they can't read, they can't read the founding documents. So then what did Big Pharma do? Well, Big Pharma then launched the Science of Reading initiative. Well, when that rolled out, we started seeing all these bills at the State House and started realizing something was behind that. So again, I went to Influence Watch, pulled up the article from 2022, I think it was, when Lilly launched the initiative for Science of Reading, coordinated with the Hunt Institute. So I went and dug in behind the Hunt Institute and uncovered the very same network of players that was behind this Science of Reading. So then we go to school choice. So now they've dumbed the kids down. They've got them confused. Parents are pulling them out, right? So the government creates the problem, and now the government's rushing in with the solution. So what happened? School choice has been promoted across the country. It's coming into every state. So we took a look this year at what was happening in Texas, because so goes Texas, so goes the United States. And Texas is under siege right now. I mean, they are coming after Texas really, really hard from every angle. So we took a look at who was behind the push for school choice down here in Texas. And as you can see there in the left, you see a picture of Governor Abbott, who is a World Economic Forum partner. He's on the World Economic Forum website as one of the few governors of the United States is. He was in that picture with Corey DeAngelis. Corey DeAngelis is a founder of the Reason Foundation, who was funded by the Laura and John Arnold Foundation, which set up the Arnold Ventures Fund to create social change. That then funds New Venture Fund, and you're right back to Arabella. Are you with me? So then you go over to the right and you look at Jeff Yost. Jeff Yost is a multimillionaire from Pennsylvania. He's dumping in over $10 million into Abbott's coffers, who's then distributing it through all these legislators who he's bribing them and getting them to push school choice and vote for school choice. Well, he is a founder of this Susquehanna International Group, if that's how you pronounce it, who then funds the Philadelphia Schools Partnership, which is also funded by Laura and John Arnold, and you're right back to the same circle, back to Arabella. So then you take a look at, okay, what is UNESCO doing with school choice? Well, you can see there, the UN Economic and Social Council is given consultative status by the Save Our Children, or Save Our Children is given consultative status to the UN, essentially, but they are funded by BlackRock, USAID, Open Society, the Ford Foundation, Gates Foundation, and the same players. Okay. They then branch out, and you can see Save Our Children is supported again by Jeff Yoss, who, look over to the left, is funding Greg Abbott. So you can see how this influence, this backdoor influence, this fourth branch, if you will, that Renee Wormser talked about, is actually controlling everything and actually pushing this very dangerous agenda to destroy our Western civilization. So then let's go to the books. So we're all uncovering all of these books that are coming into our libraries, our schools, right? It's all this propaganda, sexual propaganda. When we were fighting this in 2023 in Indiana, I said to one of our team members, I said, go and get me the connections, because I know the World Economic Forum and the United Nations have been using propaganda, printed propaganda, television propaganda, music propaganda, you name it. They're using it as propaganda against us. So sure enough, it wasn't long. And he came back and he said, yep, these 5 publishing companies with some of the worst books we have found, okay, are coming from the World Economic Forum and the United Nations through these publishing companies and through these distributors. It's the same group that's also pushing out the climate change nonsense into the schools. So keep that in mind as you're dealing with the book issue, that this is really who's behind it. It's coming from the very top. So then we have to talk about the sexual revolution that's behind all of this. And this right here is Alfred Kinsey in the upper left-hand corner. He is meeting with erotic filmmaker Kenneth Anger in Aleister Crowley's Satanic Temple in Sicily. Aleister Crowley worshipped Baphomet. Okay, this is what's really behind it. It's this whole satanic sex cult, if you will. In the bottom left, you see a picture of Satanists that were in the state of Washington several years ago when Washington State passed the law to push CSE into their schools. These Satanists were out in the streets, and the minute that bill passed, they marched into the Capitol and they stood around that emblem on the floor and they started doing their satanic chants. That picture was captured by one of our colleagues who was out trying to stop this bill. And as soon as that happened, he sent that picture to all of us and said, we are not dealing with normal behavior here. This is what we're dealing with. And so now what do we have? Now we have these satanic clubs popping up in schools. And the sad thing is, in Indiana, the founder of the Satanic Temple in the state is a 4th grade teacher in Fort Wayne. This is essentially what this all feeds into. And these are the books I've been reading down through. This one in particular deals with North America, the pedophilia and empire, Satan, sodomy, and the deep state. This calls out many high-ranking officials across the globe. This book in particular concentrates more on North America, but it highlights who was involved, who was funneling money back and forth to who, and it really draws out many of the names that were involved in this. And so there are 5 books in this series. I encourage everyone to get these books and read through them. You're going to learn some very horrific actions that were taken to traffic these children, to torture these children. But this is what Alfred Kinsey fed into. This is essentially the Kinsey Institute tree of pedophilia, as I call it. It's funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. He was given protection by the Central Intelligence Agencies. And now you've got the United Nations funneling everything up through this perverted tree that is transgenderism, it's sex trafficking, it's pornography, it's sex education, and it's HIV, it's promoting abortion, the STDs, the date rape, the sodomy. All of it is this sick tree of pedophilia that's based on the crimes and fraud of Alfred Kinsey, funded by the Rockefellers and protected by the Central Intelligence Agency. So then what happened? Well, Alfred Kinsey laid the foundation for SIECUS, which is the Sex Information Education Council of the US. Okay. That was founded at the Kinsey Institute. So you see there in the center, Kinsey Institute, Alfred Kinsey to the left, Hugh Hefner up above him. Hugh Hefner read Kinsey's books and decided he was going to become Kinsey's pamphleteer. That is when Playboy started. That then fed into these publishing companies, you can see there on the left, which then fed their programs into some of the churches and infiltrated the churches. You can see the education system there involved. You can see the funding, the financial funding that came in, and you can see it infiltrated the medical field. Think of all the transgender kids that are being targeted with this transgender nonsense, right? And it all feeds back to population control, which is essentially what this is all about. You have Hugh Hefner giving the seed money to a medical director, former medical director of Planned Parenthood, Mary Calderon. And between them and about a half a dozen other people, Marxists, humanists, and communists all set up SIECUS to be the sex ed arm of the Kinsey Institute. This is what is pushing the perversion into the schools. So let's switch gears just a bit and let's take a different angle at this. This is Larry Fink. Listen very carefully to what he says and think about what some of the things I've already told you from the MK Ultra project of behavior modification.
Behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors. 54% of the incoming class are women. We added 4 more points in terms of diverse employment this year, and what we're doing internally is if you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted. Okay,
we're doing the same thing.
And so it's just you have to force behaviors, and if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted. And that's not recruiting, it is development, as Ken said. And ultimately, it's still going to take time, but I am just as much shocked as Ken is that we have not seen more opportunities, and we're going to have to force change.
So you heard it from himself. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, said they're going to force behavior changes. Well, what does that look like? Well, as we moved to Texas, my husband was looking for a job. And so as he's filling out applications online, he's being forced to take these behavior surveys. And he had taken many of them before he even told me about it. And once I learned, I'm like, don't take any more of them because they're tracking your behavior. So he went the next morning to sit at his computer and he calls me and he says, Rhonda, I've got another one. So we took a look at it and we took those screenshots of those behaviors that he's having to fill out what he is for himself and what others would see in him. But the kicker was this first part of it where he fills out his name, his email. This right here caught my attention. If you already have a behavior assessment score, you can put it in. So this, my friends, leads to the ESG scores based on behavior scores. Okay. So where does this affect us? Well, personally, it affected us because the RV industry was where we came from. My husband worked in the RV industry. The RV industry is 99% captured at this point. They're pushing the United Nations sustainability policies, the ESG policies, the DIE policies. They have supplier code of conducts. So if you're not complying with their mandates for implementing all of this stuff, they just won't buy your parts. And then you've got employees being forced to take psychological surveys and trainings. Okay. So you can see right here, right off their websites, Lippert Components, which has a lot of this, supplies a lot of the parts to this. Okay. They're implementing it all. Berkshire Hathaway implementing the ESG. That's Warren Buffett. You can see Jason Lippert up there in the upper right-hand corner, but you can see the Rev Group, which builds a lot of ambulances and fire trucks and emergency vehicles. They're implementing the diversity and inclusion policies. Essentially, they're implementing what was Biden's ESG agenda. That was the whole point behind it. Okay. So now let's come at it from another angle. So you have the United Nations warning war on capitalism. This is Maurice Strong. He's a former UN Undersecretary General, founding giant of the global environmental movement. He's also a Committee of 300 member. Remember the Committee of 300 on the very first slide with the umbrella. He's talking about we may get to a point where the only way to saving the world will be for industrialized civilizations to collapse. Isn't it our responsibility to bring that about? He's talking about collapsing our civilization like it's nothing. Okay. And then he goes on to say it is clear that current lifestyles and consumption patterns of the affluent middle class involving high meat intake, consumption of large amounts of frozen and convenience foods. And he goes on saying all these things are not sustainable and that we have to come up with a society that is geared more towards sustainability. Okay. But the high meat intake, let's take a look at that for a minute. They do not want us eating meat. Is that why they want us eating bugs or 3D meat that they're manufacturing? Okay. So let's take a look at what they are doing in one aspect. Well, we have a PFAS poisoning that is poisoning land and animals. Are you aware of that? It's in Canada, Environmental Defense Canada. I found it right here, PFAS. You might be asking, well, what is PFAS? PFAS stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They're forever chemicals. They don't break down and they're in everything. Okay. But they're especially in dark waters. I want you to watch this trailer real quick. This is a documentary on what DuPont, remember the bloodline families, DuPont was doing in Parkersburg, West Virginia.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains.
Hi, Grammars.
What are you doing here?
Your grandma tells me her grandson's some fancy environment lawyer down in Cincinnati.
I am a corporate defense attorney.
So?
I defend chemical companies.
Well, now you can defend me.
How many did you lose?
190.
190 cows.
You tell me nothing's wrong here.
It's a small matter for a family friend. Help a guy who needs it.
The farmer or you? That's chemicals, I'm telling you.
I'm seeing documents I don't understand.
They're hiding something.
That chemical, what if you drank it?
Drink it.
It's like saying, what if I swallowed a tire? What if whatever's killing those cows is in the drinking water?
At DuPont, better living through chemistry. It's our DNA.
You need to tell me what in the hell's going on.
DuPont is knowingly poisoning 70,000 local residents for the last 40 years. You knew, still you did nothing.
You want to flush your career down the toilet for some cowhand?
You want to take everything that you know and turn it against an iconic American company, like an informant. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? Isn't that right?
Yes.
They have all the money, all the firepower, and they'll use it. I know. I was one of them. Our government is captive to DuPont. They're trying to force you to make me stop.
He was willing to risk his job, his family, for a stranger who needed his help.
The system is rigged. They want us to think it'll protect us. We protect us. We do.
I would encourage you to go and watch that full documentary. It is very eye-opening and very shocking what DuPont was doing and intentionally covering it up. But here's something else I want you to realize. So Synagro makes biosolid fertilizer from human waste that it contains PFAS. This is a picture of a biosolids facility in Canada. What I want you to know is Synagro is owned by Goldman Sachs. Okay, in 2020, Synagro was sold to Goldman Sachs. Again, they fund abortion and the Arabella New Venture Fund. This guy right here, Robert Preston, came to Synagro in 2018. This was just a few short years after DuPont was forced to pay out over $650 million to the victims of the Parkersburg, West Virginia poisoning. Ohio also went after DuPont because they poisoned the Ohio River. But interestingly enough, Robert Preston, who was formerly from DuPont, shows up at Synagro. And Synagro is now making human waste in Canada to spread on your land. Interesting thing is, Goldman Sachs is a World Economic Forum partner. And they are 73% owned by BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. That's who owns essentially the poisoning of your land. But don't worry, now that they poisoned your land, we have Warren Buffett coming through with his eco water filtration system that is incredibly expensive. So they create the problem, come in with the solution, and then charge you an abnormal price for that service or that system. Science for Sale exposes how EPA covered all of this up, how EPA has been covering up a lot of what they've been doing to us. I encourage everybody to get a copy of that and understand that when these grants go out, the grants come with strings attached. When they dole out that money, they want you to match their agenda with your own data and your statistics. If you don't come up with that the way they want it, they will silence you. And that's what they tried to do with this David Lewis, who wrote this book. He talks about that in that book. This, I'm not going to show this for the sake of time, but I want you to go to YouTube and you can look up Growing Broke, which is another documentary. I put together clips out of this. It's only about a 40-minute video, I think, of full video of the poisoning, the PFAS poisoning in Maine of the dairy farmers and how it impacted the milk supply for our nation. So this is another aspect of this whole PFAS poisoning. And in this documentary, the full documentary, they break down of where those chemicals came from, how they got here, what they're being used in. And this is the video that Erin Brockovich is in. She's an incredible environmental attorney that's going after much of this.
Advocate Erin Brockovich.
So Nature Conservancy.
Rhonda, I was going to say, if you want to play that clip, you know what, if it's important, I want you to feel free to do that. Okay.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Advocate Erin Brockovich ready to take on this fight.
EPA, FDA, political leaders, where have you been? How did you miss this? That now we have an entire country that could potentially be in peril from this forever chemical that's destroyed your land, destroyed our farming, destroyed our water, and destroyed public health and welfare. Wow. Kudos. Good job. I am glad News Nation is looking into this problem. All of us, the entire country, will deal with the fallout.
How long did chemical companies know this was a problem? How long did government agencies?
It's politics, and it's lack of transparency. It's cover-up. It's greed.
The paper trail and the reach.
It's already here. It's just been lurking and creeping, and we didn't know it. The storm is here, and it's not just in Maine. It's in every single state.
How did PFAS end up on prime American farmland?
We have this bright idea that we're going to take all this sewer sludge and we're going to spread it on the land as fertilizer.
Welcome to the sludge pathway with epidemiologist Patrick McCroy.
You know, the process starts with the manufacturing of PFAS. Right, so DuPont, 3M, others actually manufacture these chemicals.
Patrick says these manufacturing plants discharge to a sewer system, which goes to a wastewater treatment facility. Then there's PFAS in your home, from our clothing that's stain resistant to our sofas and carpets and our cleaning products. When we clean an item in the washing machine or dump a bucket down the drain.
But they have to do something with all of those solids that settle out, and that's what we call sludge. So you have this contaminated sludge that then goes to a local farm where it's spread out as fertilizer. Most of the PFAS that ends up in most people is from what we eat, right? So if you look at the PFAS that's on the farmland, goes into crops, or goes into crops that are eaten by animals that we then eat, that PFAS is eaten by us.
At what point in this entire flowchart and process does the EPA test for PFAS?
They don't. They don't. They never test for PFAS, right? EPA requires the sewer districts to test for a handful of heavy metals, but they never test for PFAS.
So this sludge is going onto farmland without being tested for PFAS by the EPA?
Correct. By the EPA or by any state or local authority. It's just not tested. No one knows.
Forgive me, that sounds crazy.
It is.
So you have almost like a cycle that you take the hazardous waste, apply the sludge on the land, you now contaminate the land, that contaminates the water, that's contaminated the food chain. We're into a real serious problem here with this forever chemical.
PFAS are completely man-made, created from the top-secret World War II nuclear bomb Manhattan Project.
Stone and steel are turned into gas.
After the war, 3M bought the patent to develop these newly discovered chemicals and found they did a remarkable job resisting water, stains. 3M created Scotchgard. PFAS made their way into firefighting foam and in our homes, in carpet and couches, and under the company DuPont in our Teflon pans.
It's in firefighter gear. It's in flame retardant clothing we put babies in. It's in the furniture that we spray, the Scotchgard, so we don't stain something. It's in our makeup. It's everywhere. It's in our coffee cups. It's everything. It is pretty catastrophic that a chemical like this has gotten into every aspect of our life. We're not going to be able to stop the break in the dam and the flood that is about to come. We've taken our own hazardous waste and destroyed our land, destroyed our water. And now we're destroying our food chain. USDA and EPA, how in the hell did this get by you? It didn't. You knew something. For the sake of money, for lobbying power, you turned a blind eye. What do you know? What is the EPA? We've set up a system that isn't doing its job and hasn't done its job for decades. We've thought they were, and it's maddening to wake up and realize, wow, you've been asleep at the switch the whole time? They had fair warning. This was going to be a problem. And for political reasons, for lobbying reasons, it got slid under the carpet. And now we've got a real problem. Our disconnection from the value of our land and our soil and our water to destroy it is in turn to destroy us. We are better than that. And I do believe it will be the farmers, it will be the people, it will be those who have been damaged, which will be a lot of us are going to stand up and we're going to speak up.
And that is what it's going to take, is all of us standing up and speaking up, because these chemicals cause all kinds of cancers, whether it be kidney cancer, bladder cancer, thyroid cancer, all kinds of cancers. And I know of an environmental investigator here in the county that we moved to where I found out we have been poisoned with PFAS chemicals. The environmental investigator has lost family members now because of the cancer and PFAS. So let's switch gears again and let's talk about the Nature Conservancy. I told you about them earlier, as they're funded by the globalists. They have now basically captured 15 million acres in Canada alone. Did you know that? And that's what they do. They set it off limits so that you can't utilize that land. So who's behind the Nature Conservancy? Let's take a look. Nature Conservancy consists of these board members there in the pictures. You can see there their connections to the United Nations, Conservation International, Arabella, Council on Foreign Relations. The very same network is controlling the Nature Conservancy that is controlling what use you get of your land in Canada. You also have solar in Canada that is attached to the World Economic Forum. You have AMP Energy in Toronto. Okay, AMP Energy is owned by Carlyle, acquired by Rivera Energy and longtime partner Carlyle. Carlyle is a direct partner of the World Economic Forum. So you can see you've got the WEF bringing in solar into your country. This guy right here, J. Gary Lawrence, wrote this article from 2002, The Future of Local Agenda 21 in the New Millennium. Tanya, you may want to put this up on your website. This is an article we use all the time when we're talking about local government, but because he's talking about how they are going to usurp our society and create a one world government is what he's saying. But in this article, it says right here at the bottom, they're revamping the local balance of power. They're admitting it by changing the community decisions about what can or will be discussed And who has a right to be at the table? You as a taxpayer, according to this article, no longer have the right to have say in your local government because they're revamping it and they're going to push this global agenda. He was an advisor on the President's Council for Sustainable Development and to USAID. USAID, we now know, is funding a lot of this underground network that's been usurping our power. This here is Harvey Reuven. He's an honorable board member of ICLEI, which is the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives. This is another spin-off organization, but in this article from 2012, he says the individual rights will have to take a back seat to the collective. He is pushing socialism. Here you can see, you have ICLEI in Canada. Here you can see, they're pushing the United Nations sustainability goals. And here you need to understand this is the economic war that Rockefeller admitted they're doing. Okay, the International Economic Development Council is very well alive and well in Canada. You can see right here off their social media, you can pick up on this. Okay, Calgary, they're bringing in the International Economic Development Council, which is, you'll see here in a minute, who's behind it. They had a Happy Canada Day. You can go on to International Economic Development Council, Facebook, social media, and you can find a lot of this stuff. But here's who's behind the International Economic Development Council, okay? This is Nathan Ohl, who is the president and CEO. He's all about public-private partnerships, and he's all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here are your Canadian Board of Director members for the International Economic Development Council. These two individuals right here, okay? And you can see right here off their social media, you're going to find out who's supporting them. It's all about global goals, global opportunities, making global goals a local affair, and advancing and embracing the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And then you've got it being funded and supported by the Rockefeller Foundation. And then you've got it supported and funded by Aspen Institute, the Federal Reserve Board, Robert Wood Johnson. We talked about them earlier. You got the Walton Foundation, the Walton Family Foundation involved, Ewan Marion Kaufman Foundation, which is run by a lifetime member of the CFR. And then right here, you can see the International Economic Development Council views immigration as economic development. This is your mass migration that they are using as part of their economic warfare against us. Is this why they do not want to remove them? More than likely, yes, because it drives up cost of everything, right? And who's making money off of it? These people all attached to this global agenda. So now let's go back to the Wyss Foundation and Arabella Advisors. Hans-Georg Wyss served a specific purpose of the Arabella Advisors. He's Swedish born. He lives in the United States, is not an American citizen, but he set up the Wyss Foundation not only to push the environmental nonsense, the climate change nonsense, but he also set it up so that he can control our elections. Because they couldn't pull this off if they didn't control who was in office, one way or the other. And so that's what the Wyss Foundation is all about. That's their part of it. And I don't know how many of you have seen The Giver. I know that many people have read the book. This is a very powerful movie. I encourage people to watch as well. I'll play this short clip of this trailer, but I want you to think about everything I just showed you and watch this in a different light.
Suffering came a solution. Communities.
Injected.
Serene, beautiful places where disorder became harmony.
Do you know how to fly those?
Absolutely. Do you get to fly to the edge?
Oh, yeah.
What's past there?
Don't know. We're not allowed to fly past that.
Let's go.
It's against the rules, Jonas.
They're called books.
Hello? My name...
I know who you are.
Who are you?
The giver. When the elders need guidance, I provide wisdom using memories of the past. Our world was different. There was more.
More?
Much more.
Right.
You'll see them all in time. All colors, all differences. Our people chose to do away with emotions. Those morning injections take them away.
When people have the freedom to choose, they choose wrong.
Father, do you love me?
What does love mean? He's not usually like this.
I'm surprised you're not more worried about him. I would be. Bring up Jonas's activity.
He's inquisitive.
You should know better than anyone.
The way things look and the way things are very different. What?
That's my father.
There is no way for me to prepare you for the truth.
They haven't eliminated murder. They just called by a different name.
The young and the old are killed.
For the good of all of us.
Go back to your family unit.
It isn't my family, and neither is yours.
Jonas has become dangerous.
Gabe is in danger. This is the only way to make everything okay.
I know that there's something more. Something that has been stolen.
Comfortable? There has to be a way to show them.
You can change things. You can make things better. You have the courage.
For the first time, I have faith.
That is a really powerful film. That really is eye-opening. And they've been telling us for decades what they're doing in these movies. But here's what the takeaway is from that. And this is where it gets encouraging. You can change things. You can make things better. You have the courage. We just have to find it and we have to use it. So where do we go from here? Well, I'm going to give you some action steps. First, you start getting into educational local meetings. And we encourage you to get plugged in with Action for Canada. You adopt a 7-step process by getting connected, you get organized, you implement a plan, whatever issue it is you want to take on, whatever you want to tackle, you implement a plan, you devise a plan, you implement it, you do the work. It takes a lot of work, as Tanya will tell you, but you build a movement. And as you celebrate victories, you get those victories, you celebrate them and you review the progress, and then you continue to move forward. You have to adopt a war mindset because we are at war and you have to move forward together. Local empowerment is where it is all at. And that's where we're seeing the local victories. And some of that Tanya shared with you tonight, the victories you're getting up there. So in closing, here are some of our resources that you can go to. You can go to our website, purple and the number 4, parentsunited.org, where we have a lot of our resources. Many of the diagrams you saw tonight are up there, the flowcharts. Please go to influencewatch.org and start doing your own deep dive research. Also, I didn't put on there, but Data Republican is another one where they're also showing the dark money that's involved behind all of this. And then if you want to know who the communists are in the communities, you can go to kiwiki.org. That will give you names. And I'm not sure if Trevor Loudon did it in, that's his website in Canada or not, but those will give you some other entities you can look up in your individual communities. You can visit us on social media. We also have our new show, Unmasked and Unfiltered, on our Rumble channel, which is Purple for Parents United. So with that, I think that's I'm going to close with some scripture. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles and to the officials and to the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. We are commanded to fight in Nehemiah 4:14. Esther 4:14, for if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise from the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. And we have. That is why I believe we're all here. I'll close with one other quote from President Kennedy. He tried to warn us, for we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system that has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. And for that, he was killed. He was warning us. But we can make a difference by uniting together. We can change this. And so I want to thank you all for watching tonight and for giving me the opportunity to share this information with you.
Wow, thank you, Rhonda. That was a most excellent presentation. I was watching the chat. If we look at it through our human eyes, we could feel already defeated. And that's the thing about for myself as being a Christian because it keeps me going every day. My verse that I'm going to wrap up with in a minute will be about putting on the armor of God and why that's so important. And our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities as we can see this. This is darkness. This is evil. That's why, one of the main things we need to do is we need to embrace the foundations of our nation, both America and Canada and the Western nations that are being, European Western nations that are being attacked, all have at their root a godly biblical foundation. And, throughout this attack, this indoctrination, this programming over the last decades, they've tried to move us from a Christian nation to a secular nation to a multicultural nation to Trudeau's post-national state with no core identity. And people were willing to reject God and the Bible. They were even willing to reject Action for Canada when we were proclaiming this, starting 10 years ago. But now, thank God, the world is shifting and nations are rising up in defense of their biblical standards and putting God back on the throne in their country. So that to me is like number one. You need to pick a side. If you don't like Islam, if you don't like communism or socialism, what is your choice? You need to pick a side. And then you need to get busy, like Rhonda is saying, within the communities. And that's what Action for Canada is gifting Canadians with, is to build communities within communities of like-minded people. We provide you the resources, we provide you the strategies and delegations, everything that you could possibly need to win in your communities. But we need way more people on deck, way more people on board so that we can have wins like they are experiencing in the United States. And so, Rhonda, I love it that at the end you wrapped up with how people could follow you. I would encourage people to do exactly that. Sign up with Rhonda so that you can get updates. I am sitting on the edge of my seat to hear updates soon, about whether Indiana is going to get behind this HR 2749, if there's senators and congressmen that were lobbied that are going to get behind this to have Alfred Kinsey investigated. And I want to just emphasize to our viewers, think of the impact. This goes before the courts. They determine in this investigation that Alfred Kinsey was a criminal and sexualized children and abused them. And then that is like cutting the head off the snake. It discredits all of his work and they have to remove it. And that is going to have a ripple effect with countries around the world. So again, I'm just so incredibly impressed with all of the work you're doing. And just to finish, I know that again, when you and I were getting to know each other and we talked about this mission with involving Kinsey, it was the same thing that I'm experiencing is God put this on my heart and I had to move forward with this mission. So praise the Lord for that.
Yeah, I thank you so much, my friend, for all your support. We are neighbors and, we have to fight together in order to save our children and to save the world. And I just want to commend you for everything you're doing in Canada. And I look forward to working alongside you for the near future, foreseeable future.
Absolutely. And I as well see this as an incredible partnership and a gift in getting to know both you and Audrey. And we remember also the Bible verse that, when God is for us, who can be against us? And that's the faith that Christians have. And there's promises throughout Scripture that says that evil will not prevail. It will prevail for as long as we allow it. And so we really need to unite on this and come together and support each other. Don't leave it to somebody else, my friends. Join us, get actively involved and, assist us. So Rhonda, with that, is there any final closing word that you would share with our viewers?
I would just say, you know what, it's not lost. I mean, we have God on our side, and with His help and His guidance, we will right the ship. He will not let evil go unpunished forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just encourage everybody to link arms with you, Tanya, and take action in
Mm-hmm.
Canada to save Canada.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Just God bless you in the work that you're doing.
God bless you, my friend.
Okay, thank you. Well, incredible, everyone. That was an amazing presentation. And I again emphasize the importance of engaging with your local officials, your local elected officials, your MP, your MLA, your city councilors, and your school board trustees, and start presenting this information. This is nefarious and it's very deep. I saw Alex Newman's name on there, and Alex is a friend of Action for Canada. We've had him on many times. And of course, he wrote the book, The Deep State, and exposing it. And now, citizens everywhere are beginning to understand the picture and exposing the corruption in their own countries, and we're definitely on the front line doing that in Canada. And speaking of exposing corruption, next week's guest is going to be none other than Dallas Brody, MLA BC. She was formerly with the Conservative Party, but she got ousted when she spoke the truth and talking about Kamloops graves and the fact that they're empty and that this is a charade and a fraud and it needs to be called out. And so I just have so much respect for this lady. She and one other MLA that left the fake Conservative Party. We knew John Rustad wasn't genuine to begin with, but we did want as many MLAs to get elected under that umbrella so that they could eventually move forward with our cause. And they've opened or created One BC, a new party. And so Dallas is going to come on next week, and we are going to expose and talk more about these Indian land grabs that are going on. I'm sure you're very well aware of what has happened in Richmond with this fake, phony, false Cowichan land deal. And now property owners literally have been given letters that their title is affected. Their mortgage brokers will not renew their mortgages, and their insurance companies will not insure their provinces. And in British Columbia, only 5% of the Indians, there were land deals, and the rest of it, 95% of BC is considered unceded territory. And so to me, that means, you know what, the Europeans came in, we give them a fair deal, and it's time to bring this charade to an end. And we're going to talk about potentially how we can do that. But it is going to be standing up like a force and united together to put a stop to it, because it's not about the Indians. It's not about their welfare. It's the global agenda. And as Klaus Schwab, the evil villain, had said, you'll own nothing and be happy. I mean, the man is ridiculous. How about him go first? How about him give up all his power and wealth, and let's see how it goes for him. Okay, and so today's Bible verse it's several actually. I want to read through Ephesians 6:10-20. And as I was just saying to Rhonda, we get up in the morning and we put our armor on, and we're fearless because we know God is with us. He's numbered our days. The enemy hasn't numbered our days, only God has. And so therefore we can speak boldly. And if my time is tomorrow, then that is God's design. But if it's 10 years from now, praise the Lord, because we got work to do. So Ephesians 6 starts with, finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we are not contending against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this present darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. And I'm just going to interject here that you saw in Rhonda's presentation, you saw the Satanists that are gathering together and are behind all of these evil attacks, especially against our children, because they hate creation, so they hate God. So they want to destroy creation, and they're starting with our children with all this trans nonsense, and sterilizing our children and moving them away from marriage and having the beautiful gift of having children, of being a mother and father. Okay, so it's wickedness that is lofty and behind this. And that's why we need to bring prayer back into schools. And we need to have the 10 commandments on the walls in classrooms, because God knows what is best for us. So therefore, take the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having girded your loins with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the equipment of the gospel of peace. Besides all these, taking the shield of faith, which you can quench all the flaming darts of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. It's important to read your Bible because God gives us all of the instructions. He tells us, throughout history what the enemy is doing, and you can learn from that, and then we can also overturn it. Finally, pray at all times in the Spirit, with all prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with all perseverance, making supplication for all the saints, and also for me, that utterance may be given me in the opening of my mouth boldly to proclaim the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that I may declare it boldly as I ought to speak. And even those are the words of Paul. I speak those words today. It is, just absolutely amazing when you have the gift of walking with the Lord every day, how that changes your perspective. We do not live with a spirit of fear because that's from the enemy. So I hope tonight encourages you. Please again, share the information. God bless you, and God bless America and Canada and the world. Amen.
In times of financial uncertainty, securing your wealth is more important than ever. With inflation, market instability, and economic challenges, many Canadians are turning to one timeless strategy: precious metals. Gold and silver have historically retained their value, offering a hedge against economic turmoil and a safeguard for your assets. If you're looking to invest, there's good news for members of Action for Canada. We're proud to announce our partnership with Steve Merrill of Sun City Silver. Steve is not only a friend of the Freedom Movement, but he's also offering Action for Canada members exclusive access to some of the best pricing in Canada. Thanks to his extensive client base and affiliation with Silver Gold Bull, you can now secure your precious metals at incredible rates. Silver Gold Bull is a trusted Canadian leader with live pricing available 24/7 and nearly 400,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot. When you purchase through Steve, you're not only investing in your future, you're also supporting the Freedom Movement, as a percentage of each sale helps support Action for Canada. Plus, there's a bonus. If you place an order of $5,000 or more, you'll receive a 1-ounce pure silver bullet, a unique and valuable addition to your collection. And if you refer someone who places a $5,000 order, you'll get another silver bullet as a thank you. To get started, visit actionforcanada.com/purchasing-precious-metals/. Remember, your decisions are your own, and we recommend doing your own research before making any investment. But with Steve Merrill's guidance and our partnership, you'll be on the right path to securing your future. Secure your assets, protect your future, support the movement. Visit us today to learn more.
The government's actions are completely 100% unlawful. comfort in that because I serve a mighty